We love Zencaster because it allows us to record the audio for our podcast and create the video segments we use for our weekly Sister Scoop episodes. Zencaster has helped us make content capture simple.
It's now super easy to record a podcast with Zencaster. Log in using your browser and start recording a high-quality podcast right away. Record studio quality sound and up to 4K video with your guests, and feel a sense of zen knowing Zencaster's multi-layered backups ensure you always have your recordings in the highest quality, even if the connection is unstable.
If you've thought about podcasting before and realized that you need a lot of different tools and services, those days are over. With Zencaster's all-in-one podcasting platform, you can create your podcast in one place and distribute it to Spotify, Apple, and other major destinations.
Just go to Zencaster.com/pricing and use our code SistersAssembled, and you'll get 30% off your first month of any Zencaster paid plan. We want you to have the same easy experiences we do for all of our podcasting and content needs. It's time to share your story.
Katie and I are always hungry, and one snack we both love is beef jerky. That's why we're so excited to tell you about one of our favorite jerky brands, Matt Hat Jerky.
Matt Hat's delicious taste makes it a great snack, and the variety of flavors, including original, black truffle, and my personal favorite, roasted garlic, means there's a flavor for everyone. Plus, it's local to the area where we grew up in, which we just love.
Use the link in the show notes below to get some Matt Hat Jerky for yourself, and make sure to use our coupon code SistersAssembled for 10% off. Hello and welcome to Sisters Assembled, your home for all things MCU. And guess what, folks? It is finally here. Daredevil Born Again Season 2. We've gotten the first episode. We've watched it. We are ready to react to it. And we are going to give you a verbal spoiler warning today. If you've not watched episode 1 of season 2, please go back, watch it, and then come back to our episode. There will be a spoiler warning in the show notes as well, but this is the last time we are going to warn you in this episode, so turn it off and come back. That out of the way, I know that there's a lot being set up in episode 1 and a few things that we want to chat through. So Katie, take it away.
Yeah, I thought this was a solid episode bringing us back into the show, right?
Yes.
Like, it covered everything to the point where if I had just watched, because, hey guys, did not go back and watch season 1.
Guess who did?
Well, is anyone shocked that I didn't?
I know. I mean, I feel like our personalities have been well known enough by this point.
Well, here's the thing. There are some other things that I've had to watch instead that have been more important to me at the moment than rewatching it. So I'm sorry. All right, listen. It has to happen. Reality TV is happening as we speak.
Girl.
I have to be caught up. Either way, I did not go back and watch it. However, if I were to have watched the final episode of season 1 and went directly into season 2, it would be genuinely seamless. And that to me is already such a good sign of where this season's going to go, because we did have a little bit of some issue with season 1 just because you could tell where they rewrote the script. You could tell where they reshot. You could tell where they had to, literally throw Karen and Foggy back into it because they were like, oh, shoot, the fans actually want them in this. So because of that, I do think that made season 1 a little rough at points. But now, here we are. And I think this was a really solid episode bringing us into whatever we're going to get in this season.
I could not agree more as someone who did just watch the whole first season and literally just watched episode. I think there were 9 last season. So episode
I think
9,
so too.
About a week ago, I can say where you leave off, it perfectly picks up. Like, okay, you can tell maybe a little bit of time has passed, right? This whole, what are they? I forget what their Fisk, the Safer Streets Act, right, is the name of his policy or whatever. You can tell it's been enacted for a little bit. Probably not months at this point, maybe a few weeks, right? So we've kind of settled into it a little bit. You're picking up on the characters, kind of where they've been in that small gap that we've had since the last time that we saw them. but it really does a great job, to your point, of kind of seamlessly transitioning into, all right, we had this big finale where everything kind of went wrong, and now we're seeing these little pockets of resistance and things that I'm sure we're going to explore more throughout the rest of the season. So yeah, I think in terms of a first episode, it's made me really excited. I think I can kind of see what different, topics we're going to touch on and how different characters might involve themselves in the show and things like that. So I think there's a lot to work with, and episode 1 really, I'm hoping, seems like set a good foundation.
Yeah, I think it did. And for my Stranger Things fans out there, what it did successfully that Stranger Things did not was it had a big ending, like you said, in season 1. We crap hit the fan, right? And we all saw that. We all were like, what is going to happen next? We don't know. But then the beginning of the season does successfully address the fact this is all going on, and it doesn't just bury it. And it's like, here's a band-aid solution to the fact that all of this happened at the end of last season. No, we're in it. We're in the thick of it, like you said. And you can see these pockets of resistance starting. You can see how the plot continues thoroughly through. And to me, having just watched the Stranger Things final season and finale, not too long ago, I'm sure we can all breathe a sigh of relief, those of us who kind of have that Venn diagram of interest, because, not all shows do that. And so I do think it was really nice to get right into it. I do think because of that, it felt not in a bad way. It was a bulky episode.
Mm-hmm.
And right before we started recording, I even said to T, I was like, there's a lot to talk about, but not in depth, because it did a good job to hit all the storylines and just be like, remember, these are all important. This all happened. Reorient yourself, and then we'll address it a little bit more in depth later.
Yeah, exactly. It was very much like a foundational episode.
Yeah.
And, I think let's start by kind of going theme by theme, maybe, in terms of storylines. I think one of the things that I was really excited to see was the political themes were just as prevalent and maybe even more in your face than they were last season, which was kind of a surprise, only in that it was already very in your face last season. I know in the predictions we talked about how, it was very much focused, I would say, on Fisk's rise, and then you got to kind of the end with the anti-vigilante task force. That's really a mouthful.
It's a lot to say.
I was trying to think of what the acronym was, and then my brain was
That's not any better, though.
No.
The acronym isn't better.
There's V's and F's, and I was like, that doesn't roll off the tongue nicely either. But the anti-vigilante task force then, of course, was something that we...
Sorry, I can't not laugh at that.
I mean, it's not easy to say.
It's not, and I know I wouldn't be able to get it out, but it was the way that second time just kind of slurred, but I was like, go for it, girl.
Maybe if I say it super naturally, then it'll just start to muscle memory. My tongue will be like, of course. Yeah, we know how to say this.
We can actually say it, yeah.
Yes. But I think that was something that we even talked about in the predictions episode. We were not dealing with that level of kind of privatized police is not quite the right term, but police that are so tied to a leader's personal goals, the way that we are seeing that happen in America now. And they're continuing very much to lean into those parallels this season. I'm thinking a lot about the scene where they go into the restaurant. We've seen scenes like that on our televisions in the United States, and then for the owner of the restaurant to call them fascists and things like that, I mean, that was very much a condemnation of everything that Fisk stands for and his anti-vigilante task force and everything that they are doing, this kind of martial law and overreach of power, essentially. And so I think that it really gives me a lot of excitement in terms of what we're going to continue to see. If in episode 1, they're already starting to not even starting, they're already continuing these really deep and very timely themes.
Yeah, and I know you kind of mentioned in the predictions we went pretty in depth actually about where it had left off, where we are now, where we expect it to go. And I'm not sure I expected it so aggressive already from the jump. I think we knew the anti-vigilante task force was in and of itself going to obviously play a part, but I don't think I anticipated to see just how much they were going to play into, as you said, the current politics and like political landscape as a whole in the US at the current moment.
Yeah.
And so like the symbolism aggressive. Like
Mm-hmm.
I don't even think we could call it symbolism at this point. It is essentially just a rewritten narrative
It's a
of what we are.
reflection. It's
Yeah.
exactly what it is.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I think there were like 2 or 3 times during this episode I had like an actual like verbal, like something came out of my mouth with that when something on the screen happened. And that when they hit the lady who's like, I assume it's her restaurant, like she owns it. When they hit her, I was like, oh, what the heck? I was literally like, oh, we're just hitting women now. Like I
Yeah.
was like, what is going on? But again, I think it goes to show that we are, I like that, reflecting so much of what is happening. And I wasn't sure what we were going to do in season 2 and how aggressive it was going to be, because we also do have the Punisher and his special presentation, which we know is going to deal with this stuff as well based off of what happened last season. So it's, if this is season 1 as you, or I'm sorry, if this is episode 1 as you said, I'm really intrigued to see how this plays out as we go throughout the rest of the season.
Yeah, I think it's going to be a huge talking point for the rest of the season, and something that, I mean, we've said this a million times. Like, we love dealing with the topics that are so related to just regular life. I mean, obviously, the superhero genre can be a form of escapism, and I think there's so much room for that and just pure entertainment. But I think there's so much fun. It for me, it's fun to be able to then look at how it relates to bigger themes. Not all of the shows and episodes, or not all of the shows and movies do that, but this is one that does that so well. And to know that they're continuing to lean into that, I think it's just going to be a really interesting season for, political analysis related to Daredevil Born Again.
Yeah. I have to say I'm most excited to see how they play it out.
Yeah.
Because if you are sitting in America with us, we haven't seen it played out yet. So I would love to see how the show is going to play it out in the long run and really what happens, because we do know that it has to come to a conclusion in this season. They pretty much told us that's the direction. Like, they want to end the Mayor Fisk storyline. Like, that'll be at the end of season 2. So, or at least throughout season 2, whatever they're going to do. But regardless, we know this is not going to continue further. So they're going to wrap it up.
Mm-hmm.
And I'd love to see the conclusion that it actually reaches. Just, and even how the city handles it, like all this stuff. Yeah. I'm really intrigued to see how it will play out.
Yeah, for sure. I think the other thing kind of related to the political conversation that's maybe a little bit more subtle is the conversation around propaganda, right? And so I
wanted to talk about this so badly.
I also just like, this is quite the year, I think, for media focused on propaganda, knowing that Sunrise on the Reaping is coming out. The film, at least, is coming out later this year, and that's a huge theme for that as well.
Yeah.
But so this was something that I noticed. We know that BB is actively working against Fisk, but has to kind of ingratiate herself to the administration in order to have access. So she's basically going undercover. And in doing so, you can see how tonally her reporting has shifted. Obviously was very critical of Fisk as he was coming up, even in the early days of his mayorship. I mean, she goes toe to toe with him, which is pretty impressive.
Yeah.
She's not afraid, but then she kind of learns, oh, no. Like, the best way to take them down is from the inside, and I need access. And so you see, I mean, that cold open of her BB report where everyone's like, everything's amazing and the lighting is so bright and it's great. And then you have that shot later on where they're zooming out, and it's F Fisk on the spray painted on the thing, and it's like all about the framing and what's left in and what's left out, and who are you choosing to speak about it, because obviously she's just going to cut everybody who is not complimentary of Mayor Fisk and his policies. And so I think that whole conversation is super fascinating, and one that I hope they really continue to lean on through the rest of the episode, because again, these are things that we're dealing with in modern society as well.
Yeah, I wanted to talk about this because, I mean, we both went to school for communications. So for us, media literacy is like a massive proponent of just like the things we've learned and the things we do in our jobs.
Yeah.
So it's one of those things that I feel like we notice very quickly. And that is honestly something I clocked because I think we get it's very early in the episode. It might even open the episode, if I'm remembering, the very first video.
Yeah. It's like the cold
Yeah.
open. Mhm.
Yeah. And I remember being like, there's no way these people are this happy about this. This doesn't seem right. And they're doing the whole like crime is down and like all this stuff. And I'm like,
it's giving dystopia facade.
it is. Well, that's my point. And like immediately I'm like, that just seems, and it's funny that you clocked, but because we've kind of been taught to, the lighting, all that, because I did the same thing. I was like, well, it's really bright.
Yeah.
And now we have a great little video of a policeman, which of course the police are amazing. But notice how it's the NYPD and not the anti-vigilante task force that
wasn't it a task force person?
I thought it was the NYPD.
I thought it was a task force member, but
wasn't it the woman bending down with like a kid or something?
Yeah, I thought she was wearing the anti-vigilante task force stuff because I remember thinking to myself, isn't it interesting that of all the police interactions they're going to spotlight that happen throughout the city in a day, it was someone with the task force that, painting the idea that, the task force, isn't an issue. They're only an issue if you're a vigilante. For everybody else, they're protectors, right? This idea of like changing their public perception.
But I still thought it was interesting. It's a woman. And the reason I point that out is I don't know if we've seen a member of the anti-vigilante task force that isn't a male.
One or two in season 1. Yeah. But to your
maybe
point, it's
like
predominantly
yes,
it's predominantly
but the ones
male.
that we've followed so far has been predominantly male. So I thought it, and the idea of that softens the appearance. Women seem more trustworthy and things like that. So I thought that was very interesting. It very much threw me off from the jump because I was like, wait, there's no way. And then obviously, especially that second video when we kind of replay, but then we get the full version of it. I was like, yeah. Okay, this is a little bit more on the nose.
Yeah. Well, I want to talk about what happens right after that, right? Like who actually zooms that image out? It's someone in this caricature of Fisk, mask of a caricature of Fisk. And I'm curious, what are your thoughts on who that might be? Because they actually do a pretty decent Fisk impression as well. Because I was like,
they do.
Why is this voice like familiar to me? I mean, obviously you knew they were doing
I'm really glad you thought it was familiar because I thought it was familiar too, but then I was like, maybe it's just because I'm thinking like he's made to sound like Fisk, so I'm thinking he sounds like Fisk.
Right. So I was like, am I tripping myself up here? Am I gaslighting myself?
Wait,
like,
now that you also had that thought though, now I'm like, okay, that validates me.
Right? Like, is this someone that I know that's not Fisk, or is it just that good of a Fisk impression?
See, it's hard because I don't think we're here yet in the universe, sadly. But like, if I could, I would. And I also don't know if they're going to do this story or like this part of his storyline. But like low-key, it'd be really interesting if it was like Peter Parker.
Oh. I don't think they're going to lean into Tom Holland.
No, I don't think they're going to do that with Tom Holland. They haven't even established him as any like have an interest in that form in any way. So I don't think that they're going to go that direction. But like, if you had told me, like if you had brought if this was Andrew Spidey, I would have been like that.
Totally different. Yeah.
100%. I would have totally said that's Peter Parker.
Yeah, that is interesting. I'm like trying to think, like, do we know anybody who has a good grasp on the media, right? Like, who are characters that we know understand kind of how to change public perception in that way that would fit in this world? But I'm really struggling with who it could be, or like someone who is there a character who can mimic voices?
The problem is the answer is definitely yes.
But like, are they here?
I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah. Anyway, I think that's interesting, you know, and I think this kind of leans us nicely or leads us nicely into the idea of different forms of resistance, right? Like we see obviously the owner of that restaurant, she is helping people escape, right?
Yeah.
She's helping people get out of New York safely so that they can not fall under the unfortunate experience of running into the anti-vigilante task force. You've got this person in the Fisk mask who is doing a satire but also exposing the propaganda and the information machine that the administration is putting out. Then you have, Daredevil and Karen who are, physically, well, Daredevil at least is physically fighting him, but at the same time they're investigating him to try to get, different evidence that he's actually doing illegal things so that he can be removed from office. So it's interesting to see all these different, forms of resistance that are not just physically being on the front lines.
Well, actually, yes, but I also just wanted to point out something you kind of just reminded me. This person has sources because they're talking about the guns and everything that is on the sunk ship.
This is true.
Like that person is clearly connected. And like, let's think. Obviously, we know Matt knows about it. Karen knows about it. We obviously know he told Cherry.
Yeah.
But it's like, and Cherry being a PI at this point, I would assume isn't just telling other people. So I'm intrigued to now know that kind of, I think, burst that back open to be like, who has that information? Because they're paralleling almost what our protagonist knows. But they either run with them and we aren't aware, or they're getting this information from elsewhere.
You know who would be a really interesting person if it was them? Sheila.
Who?
Because
True.
you could tell her moral compass was like red alert, red alert, red alert
Yeah.
for most of Fisk's early time as mayor. And then you can see there's this moment in the finale after she gives up the commissioner to save her own skin. She then Mayor Fisk gets on and he makes an announcement to the city and he says the commissioner decided to resign. She knew the commissioner was trying to go to, I believe, the Capitol to try to get him removed. So she knew that's not the case. So you can kind of see that moment where it clicks to her like, oh my God, he probably killed him.
Yeah.
And I think she's, I would like to think she's only in the administration just because she has to she has not yet found a safe way to leave because she's so far in. So she's not maybe close enough to know about what's in the ships because Fisk even asks Buck, like, you must confirm it's just you and me who knows about this, right? But Sheila's very close to a lot of information. So I could see her being able to gather that information. The other two suspects who I think could be interesting are Buck, because you kind of see when he shoots that poor man, the ship captain, you see him kind of look up like, is this what it's come down to now? Like, I'm killing innocent people. And he said to the guy, like, you really didn't. You did exactly what you were supposed to, and I'm sorry because it's not your fault. And I wonder if he's maybe having a crisis of conscience, or the deputy mayor who
The kid.
I
was also thinking about
smart. He's smarter than he looks. Like he acts.
He's
I
smart,
guess.
and I think he could do the impression. Because I was thinking, as you were going about Sheila, I was like, who could do the impression well and have the information and everything? And I think he would check those boxes.
Well, and
Plus,
the other thing,
he's close to BB.
Well, and the other thing is they have that conversation in his apartment where she's like, if basically poop hits the fan, he's not the one who's going down. And he just looks at her. He's like, yeah, I'm good. Like, I'm not worried. So it either tells me he's got something on Fisk that he feels like he can use to get out of there, or he's actually working from the inside. And I mean, he came onto Fisk's campaign so gung-ho, and it's almost like, why are you so like passionate about this guy who has this criminal record and like this questionable past? Maybe basically what I'm trying to say is maybe he's been planted there the whole time.
I'm not sure he's been planted there, but I do wonder if he has morals that he let himself put aside to rise further. You know, it's a career move for him. And he talks
Yeah.
a lot about that in season 1. That's kind of his entire story arc. But I do wonder if it's reached a point where he's like, I am not cool with everything going on. So and he's using an outlet. Plus, because of how close he is with BB, and we know he likes BB and where she stands on it, and they don't seemingly stand on the same side, at least from the outside perspective. I do wonder if there's an influence there about, like, it's like one of those things where you could tell he has the shiny toys, right? Like, look at that bachelor pad he has. He has a beautiful apartment. She even points out, she's like, not living with roommates is impressive in New York, let alone this. Like,
As
this
a
is
former
crazy.
New Yorker, I cried a little inside.
Well, exactly. So that's why, like, if you think about it from that perspective, I mean, he's still reaping a lot of the benefits,
Yeah.
but if he actually has morals underneath everything, he's sitting here kind of doing his own side quest, if you will, and he's putting out this messaging with information that he knows.
Yeah. I mean, it would be fascinating. And can you imagine, like, Fisk has this really interesting line where he is actually talking about the anti-vigilante task force to Mr. Charles and is trying to find a way for them to basically not be killed at the end of this, which is fascinating. 'Cause I never thought I would ever see Fisk go to bat for anyone who's working for him. But he says to Mr. Charles, like, good, loyal men are hard to find. And he really, I think, sees himself. I think his name is Daniel. I don't know why I'm blanking on his name right now.
I don't remember either.
But I think he sees himself in Daniel a lot. You know, maybe underestimated at the beginning, but actually brilliant, whatever you want to say. And I think that would actually be a huge betrayal for him if it was in fact Daniel, to know that this kid who he gave a second chance to.
I was going to say he gave an opportunity to.
Yeah. And that he, you know, sees so much of himself in to then essentially squander that gift that he gave by betraying him.
Yeah. He'd just be a very interesting person under the mask, if you will.
Yeah.
Well, I feel like we do need to talk about Daredevil.
Yeah.
I feel like we can't not talk about him. First off, the black suit, beautiful.
Oh,
beautiful. I mean, we knew he was going to wear it, but it's still beautiful.
The shot of him holding the camera and you're seeing the
oh my God, that was such a good shot.
I was like, I'm going to cry.
That was such a good shot.
So good.
Yeah. I mean, I'm glad we came out swinging because again, this is, if I ended season 1 and I started season 2, that is what is happening. We are not building the plot at the current moment. Like, yes, we are furthering things, but we have the foundation. We're not building more, which I love. That is what makes consecutive TV series, like seasons and everything, so great, because you don't have to start completely over every single time.
Yeah.
So we get him immediately in that Daredevil suit, doing what he's got to do. Now, I do have to ask, he's still not killing people, right? Because a couple of those times that I was like, hey, Matt, that seemed overly violent, even for you.
Can I make one request to the filmmakers at Daredevil or the TV folks at Daredevil? Stop showing the compound fractures. I don't want to see men's bones. Like, they did it in season 1 where he breaks the cop's leg or arm and you see it's a compound. It's just, I don't want to see that. And then today it was like, I was looking at bone marrow and I was like, I don't have the stomach for this, y'all.
Bone marrow doesn't do it for you.
No. And like, I know this is the level of violence that was in the Netflix show, but it's been so long since I've seen it that I just was like, oh man, I forgot. They really do this.
Yeah. My stuff's more with the like mouth, ears, nose, and like eyes stuff.
Yeah, fair.
That stuff I'm like, ooh, can we not? Like, I'm good.
I don't like seeing people's bones when they're in their body. Like a skeleton, whatever. But like a bone in a body is not. That's my, that's where I like have to kind of, I'm okay.
Yeah. I didn't think it was too bad. The only one that got me a little was when they were torturing the one ship.
Oh, yeah. That was not
conductor.
Nice.
What do you call them?
Captain?
Captain.
Y'all, this is what you get when we are recording
Yikes.
right after watching the
Yikes.
show.
You knew what I meant.
Late at
You knew what I
night.
meant. Yeah, but like when they were, because they were messing around with his face and like ear area, and I was like, get out of there. Just get out of there. It's not cool. But he was extreme. I know he's always been violent. Obviously,
Yeah.
we know that's kind of his inner struggle of going too far or not going too far. But there were a few times that I was like, did he just kill him? And like, I genuinely just was like, I'm not really sure.
If not, there's some irreparable damage being done.
Ugh.
Like, I mean, and then all those guys were drowned. So, like, Matt didn't kill them necessarily, but
That's
definitely
his whole thing, right? Like, there's always a small caveat to what he does.
Like Matt incapacitated them so that they did not survive. But in his defense, he didn't know they were going to sink the ship. So like, it's not like he was like, I will break your leg so you cannot tread water. He was like, I will break your leg so you do not kill me. And then it just so happened to be that the man could not tread water.
Yeah. But he looks cool right out of the gate.
So good.
He's out there. He's doing his vigilante thing. Now, what I really thought was interesting is Daredevil himself is no longer just like the man. Matt Murdock is becoming the man and the face, if you will, to some of these people who are looking to be part of the resistance, which I think is really interesting as well, because we talked a lot, and I mean a lot, in the predictions episode about how I personally feel like Matt has had zero growth in 4 seasons. And he has struggled with the same character, struggle between Daredevil and Matt Murdock, and where one ends and where one starts, and how he lives both lives. He has struggled with the exact same battle without making nearly any progress for 4 seasons of this show. And I went into this very passionately, hoping he would start to make progress so he has some peace, because he like hates himself as both versions.
Yeah, that's rough.
It's rough, yeah. So I am feeling like if Matt is also kind of now becoming the face of a resistance, on top of Daredevil doing what Daredevil does behind the scenes, I'm feeling this might be a good place where that Venn diagram starts to move closer to itself, where that middle section is no longer like a sliver, and it's actually becoming like worthwhile of an overlap. And maybe that's how he finally grows.
Yeah, I think he is finally getting to a place where he understands that he needs to use both. Like,
yeah,
I think when he was just fighting, I mean, he's been fighting Kingpin for a long time, but I think
4 seasons.
Yeah. But I do think, when Kingpin was just a crime lord, we'll say, Attorney Matt, I'm trying to think of the best way to like explain this. Attorney Matt would have said, we just need the courts to take care of him.
Yeah.
Daredevil Matt is like, nah, we just got to get this guy off the streets. Whatever means necessary, right? And they were kind of at odds. But I think now that Kingpin has ascended to this level of power that he has, even beyond that of just a normal mayor, I think Matt is starting to realize that like both versions of him kind of need to be firing at all cylinders in order to take him down. And it's like, what can I do as Matt Murdock, to your point, to be kind of a face of this rebellion on one side and, make the connections between the resistance people or the people in the resistance that I know can help one another. But then on the Daredevil side, what skills do I have that no one else does? And he talks about having, an insane teacher to teach him martial arts and how he's such a good fighter. That's a skill set that's very rare. That yes, technically Matt Murdock has that skill set, but Daredevil utilizes that skill set and can do things that most people cannot. And so I think that realization, to your point, is going to help him maybe recognize that both versions of him have value and that they don't necessarily need to be at odds, because if he's doing the right thing, in this case taking down Fisk, they both can kind of live in a place where he doesn't have to feel shame for them.
Yeah. Yeah, and that's why I think, we might make some good progress for once, hopefully. And that makes me feel good, though, because I do think as our protagonist, we can't continue on this path of continuously battling essentially an alter ego. Like, that's just not something he could do. Frank has called him out a plethora of times, essentially for just like where his moral code does and doesn't exist because of who he is behind the mask versus who he is with it on. But even with it on, he's being held back by who he is behind it. And it's like all of these levels of things. So I do think this is going to be a solid way to finally kind of, like I said, that Venn diagram, that slither, like the little slither in the middle, we're doing good. We're good. It's getting bigger. And so I'm hoping that's the direction we go with him. He actually ironically seems like he's thriving. Like, this chaos is great for him. Plus, he has Karen.
Honestly, yeah. I mean, like, is this low key? I mean, he definitely looks stressed, and I do think he is not happy he's not in the courtroom. Like, when I was talking about forms of resistance, I realized I forgot to talk about Kirsten. Like, she is out there basically taking pro bono cases of the families of people who have essentially been disappeared by the anti-vigilante task force, so that they are able to, you know, have a fair defense at their trials whenever they come from wherever they're being held. Sorry, Jack. Like, that's terrible. And
Right?
also, like, what the heck is Heather doing? Like, we'll talk about her in a second, but that's a whole other conversation. But, you know, Kirsten is out here also fighting the good fight with her skills, right?
Yeah.
And the crazy thing about Matt is, like, Matt's out here being a low-key face of the resistance. Then he has these skills as Daredevil, but then he also has these skills as a lawyer. And so I think that's the one area where Matt feels like he could be doing more and isn't able to do that in order to protect Kirsten. I feel like that's maybe, like, not his best argument, only in the sense that, like, I don't know that him working with Kirsten is necessarily going to put her in danger, because that's his day job is a lawyer. Like, I'm not sure why he feels like that's so challenging, but whatever. Matt knows things that I don't, obviously.
Well,
but
we do have to remember that Fisk knows who Matt is. And so I do think inadvertently, no matter what, anybody who's running in the circles around him and who's helping him, even if it is literally legal work and they are partners, it doesn't really matter. I think it immediately makes them a threat.
I think that's fair. I guess I was just kind of getting at, like, if they're kind of openly doing this work, him or her getting hurt or having something happen to them looks incredibly suspicious. So, like, almost by the fact of, like, their work being so out in the open, it almost offers them a level of protection, I guess. But I do see the argument there. But anyway, circling back to kind of what you were saying with Matt thriving, I think other than that, the fact that he wants to be in the courtroom and you know, providing value to the resistance in that way, you're right. The man looks like he's basically at peace. I think for the first time ever, Karen and his relationship doesn't annoy me because she's actually accepting both versions of Matt, even though she's known about both versions for a whole while now. And I just feel like they're kind of sorry, I just have so much
I know.
so much
I know.
up and
I'm
down.
not going to say anything.
But I think their relationship is on much more equal footing than it's ever been. And I hope that whenever this resolves with Fisk, aka at the end of the season, Matt's able to kind of take a lot of, kind of what you were saying, take a lot of these learnings about how to basically be accepting of himself, but then also learn how to be accepted by other people. I think he takes a lot to heart about what people think of him.
Yeah.
And the fact that Karen is starting to accept him after all these years, I think is good for him, to be able to kind of move forward and actually find happiness. Who knew?
Yeah. Who knew? Truly. Yeah. I think Karen is a big piece of that. And I do think we also discussed her involvement a little bit in the predictions episode as well. I think, at least from the first episode, we could say that has come to fruition. We do feel like she plays a big part in allowing him to feel comfortable in both of his skins. And so I do think seeing that right off the bat and establishing that from the bat makes me feel better about, to your point, their relationship, but also his own relationship with himself and his alter ego as a whole.
Yeah, totally. All right, so we've talked about resistance.
We gotta talk about Heather and our swordsman. And those are like that and the final scene. I don't like you, Heather. And now I didn't really like you by the end of last season anyway.
Yeah.
But you're annoying. And you are another one that, to me, gave up your own integrity. And now you didn't even have to. Now you actually were not in a position of full, like, being threatened, essentially.
Yeah. There was no bodily harm being,
You could have
put
walked
on the
away.
table.
He wouldn't have gone after you. You were literally acting as their couples therapist. So, like, you were fine. He would not have gone after you. He respects you, which is why he offered you the role he offered you.
Yeah.
But he would have actually allowed you to walk away. Like, there was not a stake there. He would not have done anything to you. You didn't. And I know okay, let me just regroup this and just say, I don't really care about your trauma with Muse.
Okay.
I don't.
I mean, that's a choice.
No, but here's the thing. I knew where I was going to go with this. And so, first off, I was more excited just to see him. I was like, great, we wasted this character last season. I'm glad he's at least in flashbacks. Coolio. Awesome. Great. But I actually don't care. And this is why, though. There are too many things going on for me to care about this side character. You're, like, not important enough to me at the current moment. And maybe they'll change that. But I don't find her important enough for me. I just want the main plot and the smaller plots that we already established. I don't, unless Muse is gonna haunt her in nightmares to the point where she goes insane and, like, I don't know, does something drastic. I don't care as much.
Okay, wow. Those were some takes.
She made me angry.
I mean, look, I don't disagree. Like, I also was struggling a lot with Heather by the end of the season, last season even. I just feel like for someone who's a mental health professional, the way she handled her relationship with Matt, like, she
That's
basically,
what I'm saying.
I mean, she basically just, like, therapy spoke at him and was like, you're being this. And I was like, you said you weren't his therapist, babe. Like, why are we doing this? So she was, yes, on my poo-poo list, not my favorite. And then I think you see maybe some of her darker tendencies when she takes on, to your point, this mental health. I don't know if she's, like, head of mental health or whatever. But I think what will be interesting with her, and I do agree, maybe we got a little too much of her in episode 1, but I do think
maybe that's what it was. Just from the jump, I was like, wow, like, this is a little.
I think I only needed Heather for, like, a total of 2 minutes. I don't think I need, like, the scene with Jack could have been shorter. The scene, even with the phone call scene, could have been shorter. The reason I say that is I think what she's gonna do in her work, I think, is gonna be, one, confrontational to what Matt is trying to do. Obviously, I think it'll be interesting to see how Kirsten handles that in court. So I think there's importance and value to the story, to what Heather is doing. I do feel a little bit.
Don't get me wrong. I believe there's importance. I simply don't care about her character. I see where she'll be important and where the story of in itself. But if I'm, like, ranking the storylines, that one's so far in the basement.
Well, I do think, though, like, what will be interesting is she was already interested in the idea of vigilantes prior to even taking the job with Fisk. So the fact that she was kind of looking into their mentality, their psyche, and even though she's now falsifying those reports, which, girl, I do think that I think that is interesting, thinking about, kind of what it takes to be a vigilante, what draws people to that, line of work is maybe the wrong term, but, like, those actions and things like that. But that being said, I think a lot of her data, a lot of her perceptions are all skewed, right? Like, even when Jack was talking to her and he was saying, like, you're gonna have to take it to court, basically saying, like, I'm not admitting anything to you, like,
we can't forget he's a New York socialite. Like, he knows his rights.
Yeah. And she was like, oh, he's confrontational, he's this. I was like, no, babe, he's just, like, not
I'm glad you saw that too, because I thought I was delusional. Like, I was like, am I just, like, not picking up on where this is, like, his tone and how he's coming across? Like, I was like, yeah, to your point, it's very skewed, because I think part of it is her own perspective, especially now that she was attacked by Muse. But on the flip side of it, I think now that she has this job that's essentially reinforcing that thought process
Yeah.
and pushing her to kind of think that way, to put these people, I mean, I don't know if they're going to go behind bars or just be killed.
I have no idea.
That's pretty unclear. But that's kind of pushing her to make the deciding factors on what these people end up, or who Fisk's people end up doing with all of them. Regardless, I think that's pushing her to make the decision she's making. But she's just aggravating to me. Like, I have an op almost every time we have a show, and like she's my op this time around.
Yeah, I definitely feel like we are just seeing the deterioration of her moral compass, and that's disappointing because, I mean, Heather's not a bad character up until like probably 2/3 of the way through season 1. She's a pretty good girlfriend to Matt. Like, she really tries to get him to talk to her. It's really kind of like he starts to deteriorate a little, and she just goes boop, and then the whole thing with Muse happens, and it's like now she's really, and I will say, like, the poor girl is dealing with some very unresolved PTSD, but also on the same, side there, you're a therapist, the value of
I was
therapy.
gonna say the same thing. Go see
Like,
someone. Like, you know, you
hello?
should see someone after having a traumatic experience.
Yeah,
Like, I know that. I'm not a therapist.
yeah,
My psych minor's in overdrive. No, it's not. Like, that's common sense.
yeah. I was like, Heather, girl, what are we doing?
Yeah.
She's just making some extremely questionable decisions. And like, I'm kind of here
And
for
it's
the
episode
chaos. Yeah. Like, I'm kind of here to like watch her be her own demise a little bit because she did become a little unlikable to me. But I'm also kind of like, what are you doing? Like, you are actively ruining people's lives because you have a crazy bias. Because granted, you went through something, but you also kind of like had that bias before you went through that. So check it, girl.
Yeah.
Check it.
Yeah. Oh, for sure. I mean, the only other thing I want to just touch on briefly was the final scene. But this isn't really shocking. The only thing that shocked me was when they pulled his mask off and they went, Matt Murdock? And I was like, oh.
Well, I knew they had to die at that point. I was like, they're definitely going to die.
Well, yeah, I was like, they have to. But I knew Bullseye was in it.
Oh, was that not?
Who did you think it was?
I thought it was Frank. Is that why you looked at me funny when I said that earlier?
Yeah.
Cool.
Bullseye doesn't miss a shot.
I mean, Frank doesn't really miss either.
Yeah, but the way that they flew.
This is true. I guess, well, my process.
Brain never once went, it's Frank.
Well, here's the thing,
Frank
though.
would have been there with a machine gun.
This is true. Here's the thing, though. Writing "You're welcome" on it is a Frank move.
Yes, it's not that it's not, but also we know there's kind of an imminent Bullseye Daredevil team up kind of
I did
coming
forget
this
about
season
that briefly. Yeah.
Yes, and they do have a very complicated relationship with one another.
Yeah.
So I didn't even for a second think about Frank. I was like, it's Bullseye.
I think you know what it was. We got that news today about the special presentation. So Frank was like,
just, like, front of mind.
right there for me. And I was like, man with a gun, Frank.
Yeah, no,
100%.
The way it happened, because
that's fair.
Again, Frank would have gone in with a machine gun
and probably hit poor Matt like 4 times.
Yeah. So it was just the finesse of it that I was like, politely, that's not Frank. That's not his style.
Fair enough. I will say I was also part of it also was like I don't want to say I was not paying attention. I was so concerned about Cherry that I was like not my man, because immediately they said the anti-vigilante task force was outside and I was like, absolutely not. You do not
this
get
isn't
to take
gonna
this
end
man.
well.
Like,
yeah.
You do not. I love this man. I love him. You do not get to take my Cherry. And then the heart attack was like starting to go. And so I was like worked up, and my sense of perception and immediate thought were just like not there. I cannot lose that man.
Few seconds happened quick.
Yeah. I cannot. I love him. I love his character. I think he is just he's such a good friend to Matt, and like he has so few of them. And what I like about him is like he's he's a friend of Matt's from like the before times, right? Like
Yeah.
he still has Karen from the before times and Kirsten as well, but like so many of those friends no longer exist in the way it did when he left Hell's Kitchen. And
Yeah.
Cherry is someone who's been there with him through all of it. He was there the night that Foggy died. And I was like, please no. And then I was thinking about the fact that they killed Foggy at the end of like episode 1 last season. And then I
No,
was
girl,
like,
that
please
was at the beginning. That was at the beginning. That was the first 2 minutes of the episode.
You're right. You're right.
Because we both were like, oh, what just happened?
Yeah, and I just watched that last week. But yes, but point still stands. Like they killed Foggy in episode 1. Now are they gonna kill Cherry? I was like, please no. Just that's my like one request. That and the no compound fractures, and we're good. It's my only 2 complaints.
I mean, listen, the one thing I will say is it's health related enough that hopefully they have time to save him. It's not like a blatant sniper shot.
Yeah.
So not what Bullseye just did to those, those great vigilante squad members or anti-vigilante squad members. But yeah, I mean, I'm hoping because he didn't die, explicitly on the screen and then it's a heart attack. He's good.
Yeah.
It's possible.
But
yeah, those
everybody
last few
fingers
seconds,
crossed.
I know. But I gotta say, I'm here for us having that kind of ending too. Like that's a crazy ending for us to just jump off and sit on for a week.
Yeah, I mean, everybody's gonna be talking. I do think it was. I mean, the cliffhanger was amazing. I kind of forgot what it was like to have cliffhangers. Like, I know more shows are doing like weekly releases, but like a lot of times I still wait to binge. So,
same.
The fact that like we're actually sitting here and going, like, is it Tuesday yet? Like, no. And then next week, I think, next week we get 2 episodes. We get 2 and 3 next week.
Yes.
So that'll be fun. I mean, all in all, great, stellar start to the season. It has amped me up even more than I was before for the rest of it. I think it's kind of helped maybe guide a little bit the direction that we're going to go, how we're going to see characters change and evolve. The one thing we haven't talked about that we will really quick is, of course, Mr. Charles. Did you hear the Valentina name drop in that room?
I was the Leonardo DiCaprio meme of the...
I went back and turned on my closed captions. I was like, what name did that man say?
Oh, yeah.
So, I mean, when he said Langley, obviously that's the CIA. She's apparently still head of the CIA, which means... What does that mean for Thunderbolts? I don't know.
I could do an entire episode on that. So I feel like right now I don't want to get into it.
It's fine. Either way, we know that Valentina has continued to have her hands in some very bad things, which is what she was on trial for in the Thunderbolts. Not maybe this specifically, but all the other bad things she has her hands in. So she's a questionable lady at best.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm actually probably most excited to see that one pan out, primarily because I think we did kind of discuss when Thunderbolts happened, like, where is this on the timeline? Because they're back in Avengers, like they're in New York. Let's just go that way. They're in New York, and we know that there's going to be other factors to all of this. So I was kind of like, how does this play into what we just saw in Daredevil? Because it came out not long after Daredevil wrapped.
Yeah.
And so I'm happy there's some sort of crossover happening, because there has to be, in my opinion.
Yeah, I mean, if I had to take a shot in the dark, I would say that this confirms that Daredevil happens before Thunderbolts, because her trial hasn't happened. So
theoretically,
this could be something that she was on trial for, like all of her misdeeds, essentially. That would be what it's indicating to me.
Yeah, that's true. So I'm excited to see that one pan out a little bit.
Yeah, that was a cool name drop.
Yeah.
She scares me.
Yep. Oh, 100%. Yeah.
All right. Well, I think that's the big stuff from episode 1. We will be coming at you next week with a big ol' episode 2 and 3 reactions, which will be super fun. Make sure that you are following on your podcast platform of choice. You can also check out our website, which I will update the calendar because we got a whole slew of new updates today, which is on the website, and our Buy Me a Coffee, both of which are linked in the show notes below.
You guys can also give us a follow on all of our socials, which are linked in the show notes down below as well. And as T just said, we are getting episodes 2 and 3 next week, which means our episode of reactions will be covering episodes 2 and 3. So make sure you guys check it out when it comes out. And as always, Marvel just blew your mind. So let's talk about it.